And Republican Senator Tim Scott says he's suspending his campaign for president. Scott barely made the cut for the last Republican debate in Miami and has been lingering in the single digits in national polls. Let's bring in Galen Druke from ABC's 538 for more on what this means for the primary race. So, Galen, how surprising is Senator Scott's departure, and who benefits from this?
I think that the timing and manner in which he dropped out of the race might have been surprising. There's some reporting that folks on his team were surprised themselves. But the fact of his departure is not a surprise. It was clear, especially after the last debate, that he was having difficulty breaking through and gaining traction in the polls. In terms of who it benefits, I think there are a couple of ways to look at it. One is from a polling perspective, and the other is from a donor perspective. From a polling perspective, I would guess it would be Nikki Haley. And that's because they share more in terms of manner and style of campaigning. You know, being a little more sort of warm, happy warrior style campaigners than, say, a DeSantis or a Donald Trump. In terms of donors, I would say maybe also Nikki Haley, because, you know, Tim Scott had donors supporting him who didn't want Donald Trump to be the nominee. And so if they still feel that way, maybe Nikki Haley feels like the most obvious alternative, given that DeSantis has also struggled a bit throughout this primary.
So give us a lay of the land. Where does this race stand right now for Republican nomination?
Nationally, the race shows that, according to our averages, Donald Trump is at about 56%. Then second is DeSantis at 14%. After that, Haley at about 9%, then Ramaswamy at 5%. Of course, this is not a national election, though. This goes state by state. And so if you look in Iowa, for example, you'll see that Trump doesn't actually break the 50% threshold, and that DeSantis and Haley are doing okay. I mean, DeSantis is in the teens. Haley does better in Iowa. She does better in New Hampshire and South Carolina than she does nationally. I would say Tim Scott actually has about 7% support in Iowa. So where does that support? So even if nationally he's at like 2%, where does his support in the early states like Iowa and South Carolina go? And that's where it could make the difference for Nikki Haley potentially.
All right. So what are you watching for ahead of the next debate? And do you think we could see more candidates start to drop out?
I absolutely think we could. So the next debate, there's a polling threshold of 6%. You got to get two polls nationally that show you at 6%, or two different polls in early states that show you at 6%. There are candidates out there right now who would have a difficult time making that. Doug Burgum, obviously, is one of them, didn't make the last debate. I think Chris Christie could be another one. And look, the deal right now is that the people who are running for president pretty explicitly, on the Republican side, pretty explicitly don't think Trump should be the nominee. Otherwise, why run? Right. There's a lot of support for Trump. You know, he has a lot of support in the polls. And so if your goal is for somebody else to be the nominee apart from Trump, then you got to, if you don't have a viable path, and I'm talking about Doug Burgum, I'm talking about Chris Christie, I'm talking about Vivek Ramaswamy, although maybe caveats there that he does like Trump, you know, if you don't have a path, it's time to get out, because the only way there's a real competitive race for the nomination is if it winnows down to Trump and one alternative. And I'm not even talking about a three-way race, right? If Nikki Haley and DeSantis are both still in the race, I think it's pretty clear that Trump wins the nomination.
Because they're going to split the vote between anyone who doesn't want to vote for Trump.
Exactly. So that's what I'm watching for.
All right, interesting to see who's going to hang on. Galen Druke from ABC's 538, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.